Good afternoon and welcome to This Week in Sports, where we analyze the latest and greatest in all things sports. Alongside Matt McNamara and Rob DeLuca, I'm your host, Casey Bryant. On today's episode, we will be covering the Rangers' win over the Islanders this past Monday, NHL trade rumors, and the latest in college basketball. So guys, on Monday night, the Rangers handed the Islanders their first home division loss this season in a 6-5 rout. It was just absolute offensive shootout. Guys, talk about this game a little bit here because honestly, you could say safely that this is one of the most exciting games of the year for both teams, maybe in the entire league.
Oh, definitely, Casey. I just watching it was just crazy how back and forth the two teams were. At first, you saw the Islanders come out with a startling lead. Then the Rangers came back. Islanders took the lead again, and then the Rangers made a terrific comeback. Definitely one of the more exciting games of the year, especially for both teams. The only other game I can think of for the Rangers is their crazy comeback versus Minnesota, where they came back from at least 3 or 4 goals. But something about beating a team that was dominating you game after game, especially an in-state rival, makes it just so sweet a victory. It was a huge game for the Rangers, and just a tough loss for the Islanders, once again in the third period.
All right, yeah. Well, I do think that this game in particular for both the Islanders and the Rangers were definitely the most exciting for their teams. In the league, however, I'd say it was probably around top 10. I mean, I'm sure there were more exciting games. However, it's definitely up there. And, the only other game for the Islanders I could find exciting probably was a game they actually had recently against Columbus where they won 6-3. And it was just lighted up. The fans had great energy and everything. It just seemed like such an exciting game to be at.
This game had really such a playoff atmosphere about it, especially since the Rangers kept fighting back tooth and nail with everything they had. The Islanders led by 2 goals on 3 separate occasions, and they blew all 3. I mean, it's a very impressive win, to say the least, for the Rangers, who have gotten stomped on for the most part this year by the Islanders. Matt, what was different about the battle level, really, for the Rangers this game?
Well, yeah, I think for the Rangers, the puck movement was just so crisp, and I feel like that was definitely a big difference between the one against the Islanders. When they were playing the Islanders in their first couple of games, they played scared. And the Islanders had a great intensity, which they had in the first period, but sort of lost it as the game went on as far as how many shots they put on goal and just the way they defended the Rangers. But the Rangers' puck movement was great. They remembered how to shoot good shots against the Isles, which is very important because the other games, they just were not getting good shots at all against the Islanders. And, as I said before, the puck movement, they never lost hope. There was a constant momentum shift, and there was lots of scoring from lots of different players throughout the entire game. Everyone was on the top of their game, and they had a strong penalty kill against a good power play team, although one of the goals they let up was right after the power play happened. But the Rangers were just playing like they really wanted to win. Those other games, it just did not seem like they wanted to win at all.
Yeah, what went differently for the New York Rangers this time was definitely their offense because in the first 3 games against the Islanders, they were shut out and then only scored 5 other goals. Like they lost 6-3. I mean, that 3 goals isn't bad, but they were
that game was never really close.
Yeah, they were very poorly outplayed. Then they were shut out 3-0 at the Garden, and then the 4-1 loss at the Coliseum, and then you had the one last night where the Rangers offense finally stepped up. Martin St. Louis finally snapping his goalless streak. Kevin Hayes staying on fire to, I'd say, almost everyone's surprised. No one really saw that from him. And then, of course, even though Rick Nash didn't register a goal, he's still being Rick Nash.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was such a great game for the Rangers to really regain almost a dominant position in the division because now they're only 4 points behind the Islanders with 3 games in hand. If they win 2 of 3, they have the tiebreaker. They have first place in the division. Conversely, we talked about what went well for the Rangers. What went wrong for the Islanders, a team that their fans are chanting, "You can't beat us," out in the stands, and then they blow a 2-goal lead 3 times? Like, Matt, what went wrong?
I mean, as I said before, it had to do a lot with the intensity for the Islanders. And like I said before, the Islanders' offense, they just could not. Their attack just went down after that first period. They had 22 shots on goal in the first period, which is insane, but their number was dwindled as the game went on. They tried to, their power play just was not on top of itself, and they need to make strides to make sure they play the original form. Halak was not good, especially on the 2-on-1 situations with the goals by St. Louis and other people like Stepan. Obviously, the Islanders' defense needed to step up too. It's just they lost any sort of momentum they had. The Rangers just took advantage of that. And that ended up being the difference for the Islanders.
Halak was allowing a lot of big rebounds throughout the entire game. You had to figure that the Rangers were going to cash in at some point.
There were a lot of opportunities where the Rangers could have had a good rebound, but they just missed it by that much. So, I mean, that's obviously something that Halak really needs to improve on, and that Islanders defense really needs to improve on.
I mean, what went wrong for the Islanders is you're leading 2-0, 3-1, and 5-3 at 3 separate points in the game. You got to hold those leads. I mean, the Islanders were probably very frustrated after the first period when they outshot the Rangers 22-11 and only had a 2 2-1 lead at the end of the first. That was probably very frustrating. But I think what went wrong wasn't the offense, because 5 goals you usually win a game. It was Yaroslav Halak having an off night, as well as not much defensive help, although the defense was pretty poor on both sides. But other than that, I see Yaro just did not have his game.
You talk about having a 2-1 lead after badly outshooting the other team. The only reason they really had that lead was because of a really bad turnover 11 seconds into the game by Cam Talbot. Talbot otherwise has been pretty solid as a backup filling in for Henrik Lundqvist, who is still out until the end of February at least. Cam Talbot is now 5-1-1 in his 7 starts for the Rangers. Matt, can they keep trusting in Cam Talbot, or is there a move for a veteran backup somewhere in the works?
I think for right now, I think they should definitely trust in Talbot. He's obviously shown through his work as a backup goalie and now as a goalie who's really taken over, that he can really step up. You saw in the Islanders game, he made some big saves on some big rebounds, that one-on-one opportunity, which he was able to stop, take the momentum on the Rangers side, and they were able to score after that. I feel like Talbot is really doing the job for them, and I think it helps that the Rangers fans have trust in Cam Talbot, and that trust is really been a confidence boost, certainly for him. And it doesn't hurt that the Rangers have been scoring really hot as of lately on their road trip and now against the Islanders. If they can keep up their scoring boost and that Talbot can keep playing the way he does, I feel like the Rangers can, really cruise along until they wait for Lundqvist to come back.
It was a strange game for Cam Talbot because you could probably say that 2 or 3 of the goals he allowed were pretty soft throughout the entire game, but when he was called upon to make the difficult, somewhat impossible saves, he managed to come up big, especially that breakaway chance by Casey Cizikas in the second period. Rob, what did you think of Cam Talbot?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Cam Talbot has been more solid than I would have thought he would have ever been. I mean, for a backup perspective, maybe get a veteran who can be a solid backup, because, I don't think Talbot should have to play all 14, 15 games, however much longer Lundqvist is out for. They should definitely have some help. I really don't see the AHL that they brought up. I don't see him ready to play, so I don't see them starting him. I think maybe just getting a veteran to back up Talbot for a little bit and then just release him.
Speaking of the injuries, by the way, the Islanders have been without one of their top line mates, Kyle Okposo, who has been such a great partner for John Tavares on that top line playing the wing. He's out for at least another 6 weeks with a detached retina, which it sounds nasty. That is maybe the grossest injury I've heard in hockey. They are 6-5 in his absence, but they're only 1-4 against playoff teams since he's been gone. I mean, with the Predators, the Capitals, and the Canucks coming up, is it time to hit the panic button if you're the New York Islanders, or do you still kind of ride that cushion that you've built for yourself?
I think it's too soon for the panic button. I think you just need to give it a few more games when it comes to that team, because of the fact that it just started off and they're getting used to a new line and making sure that they can try and replace Okposo. And maybe once Okposo comes back, he can make some sort of an impact. But I think the only reason you would have to hit the panic button is if they really start to fall behind the Pens, the Rangers, or the Capitals, because right now they still have a little bit of a lead over those teams. But if they start to fall behind, you wonder, are they even going to make the playoffs? Which I don't think will happen with the Islanders. But if that is the case, then I would say definitely hit the panic button. But for now, just try and fix everything that's been going on as far as their power play, their defense, which has been, missing Okposo in his presence, certainly.
I mean, yeah, it's not time to hit the panic button yet. While Kyle Okposo is very important to the team, I mean, they still have plenty of other offensive weapons in John Tavares, Josh Bailey, and all them. But really what you have to look for is, Yaroslav Halak's not going to have as bad a game as he did against the Rangers, and the defense will eventually help him out. I say the Islanders just have to shake that one off, keep playing their game, and they will without a doubt stay atop of the division and make the playoffs.
We've seen Ryan Strome, too, really step up for the New York Islanders. He's really established himself as a Ranger killer this year. He had 2 goals in the game on Monday. Ryan Strome has really accepted this large role in stride, really. He's done very well for himself. But now, as the Islanders and Rangers are starting to play very similar opponents coming up in the next coming weeks, do you see a changing of the guard, really, at the top of the division? Because honestly, like we said before, the Rangers do have a very realistic chance at tying, maybe surpassing the Islanders in the division. Do you see maybe the Rangers or the Penguins leapfrogging the Islanders?
I definitely think so. I'm not sure about the Pens because as of late they have been struggling a bit. Their team is starting to go down the path they usually go down towards the end of the season. And the Isles, as I said before, are starting to struggle. But it certainly will be a power struggle between the 3 teams. I'm not quite sure as of now who will take over. But I think out of those 3 teams right now, the Rangers have the best shot. Because of the way Talbot's been playing and because of the way that their offense has really been clicking of the past games. And their defense obviously needs to improve just a bit. But if their defense can improve with Foss coming back in a week or two, and then Lundqvist eventually coming back, I think the Rangers have a huge chance of taking over the division, maybe even taking over the conference and getting that first seed. The Islanders just really need to step up their defense, really need to step up in the third period because they've been outscored by at least 13 goals in that third period. And you're not going to be able to beat some of these high playoff teams if you're going to struggle in that period when teams are really going to attack you. So I think for the Rangers, they have the best shot, but they have to watch out for the Pens and for the Islanders because it's not going to be easy to top either of those teams.
The Rangers, you talk about them being one of the better teams in the conference. They may not be in line for the President's Trophy or even for the best record in the Eastern Conference, but they do have the best goal differential in the Eastern Conference above a team like Tampa Bay or Montreal. Rob, what do you think about how the Metropolitan Division looks?
The Metropolitan Division is one of our favorites, of course, but I mean, the Islanders, as I said, they just have to keep playing their game. It's been working for them. They are one of the best teams in the NHL right now. They're still top 5. And honestly, like I said, Halak just has to shake that game off. The defense has to shake that game off. And the Islanders, I think, will stay atop the division.
We'll see how those ranking predictions hold up. When we return, we'll talk about Evander Kane, Brandon Leipzig, and Phil Kessel's trades this past week. Welcome back. This week, the NHL was buzzing with trades, rumors, and new contracts as the trade deadline approaches. Evander Kane was the first trade that received press coverage. Guys, what was your reaction to the Evander Kane trade?
Oh, the Evander Kane trade. I thought it slightly favored Buffalo, actually, getting Evander Kane and Zach Bogosian, because right now the Buffalo's trying to rebuild, of course, and I feel that's a good step forward. I mean, it's not a bad trade for the Winnipeg Jets. However, many teams are still very interested in Tyler Myers, so I think he might actually be moved again before the deadline comes. And Drew Stafford recently came down with an injury, so he's out for an indefinite amount of time, and therefore that means that their part of the trade is just falling through right now. So I think it's slightly now I think it favors Buffalo even more.
A lot of people thought that Buffalo might have overpaid for Evander Kane and for Zach Bogosian because they also gave up 2 somewhat highly touted prospects in their system, as well as giving up Drew Stafford and Tyler Myers. Matt, who won this trade?
It's almost like a win-win for both teams in a way because it doesn't hurt the Jets. They're already a good team. I don't know if they're a top contender because of the conference they're in. It'll be hard to get past teams like St. Louis, Nashville, Anaheim, or Chicago, but you never know. And I mean, for Buffalo, you might as well have done it because of the fact that there's nothing to look forward to now. They might as well look forward towards their future, McDavid, and that whole situation. And I mean, yeah, they took the Devils to overtime yesterday, so things must be looking up for them, right? I don't know.
The Buffalo rebuild, as you mentioned, they very well could have Connor McDavid next year if they get the number 1 overall pick. I mean, aligned with Connor McDavid and Evander Kane, who is only going to be 24 next year, that does seem like it's going to be a very good line. I mean, Evander Kane's raw ability says that it's a win for Buffalo, but so far, he hasn't really played up to expectations. Is this the right move for the Buffalo rebuild, Rob?
Well, Evander Kane hasn't played yet due to his 4 to 6 month injury. So, I mean, it's hard to tell right now, but I do think it's the right move. He's definitely going to be, think about this line, Connor McDavid, Matt Moulson, and Evander Kane. That sounds like a lethal line, if anything. And even if it's not, I mean, having Jack Eichel on defense probably can't hurt if they don't get McDavid. I mean, what's so wrong with that?
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of speed out on the ice there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, as Rob said before, when Kane is currently injured now, but when he is healthy, he does put up a lot of different points, whether it be through goals or assists. So I feel like it really can't hurt the Buffalo Sabres. Could really be a nice addition to them, especially if, as we said before, if McDavid does come around to this team.
Now, one of the other big trades that was around the league this past week was the trade of Cody Franson and Mike Santorelli over to Nashville for Olli Jokinen, a first-round pick and highly touted prospect Brandon Leipzig. Guys, Olli Jokinen was less than pleased about being dealt from top contender Nashville to the lowly dumpster fire that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Right. Guys, is this the right move for Nashville now that they have defense depth and a pretty solid third-line center?
Great move for Nashville. I mean, I didn't think they needed it. They're one of the top NHL teams as well. They didn't exactly need it, but Franson and Santorelli, I don't think it can hurt, really. I mean, now they're just adding the depth, and they got rid of Olli Jokinen, who was probably next to useless because he hardly ever played, and when he wasn't producing. So therefore, this is definitely a great trade for the Predators.
Definitely. I mean, Jokinen, especially for his age, he has been putting up decent numbers, but I feel like they are, at the same time, looking forward to the playoffs, but also looking forward to their future. picking up some guys that can help them in the next few years still remain a top contender. And Leipzig is a very good player. His production has gone down the past couple of years. He's not the best behaved player, so I'm sure for Nashville they just kind of wanted to ship him away because they knew he might do better somewhere else, and it might just be less of a distraction for the team. So I think they're looking towards their future, but at the same time, looking for their current playoff chances as of now.
And Leipzig will certainly have a chance to develop in Toronto now that Toronto is really tanking towards that bottom spot. Really, they're probably one of the top contenders with Edmonton, Arizona, and Buffalo for that lottery pick there for the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. Now, is the fire sale on in Toronto? Is this the start of bigger things this year? Because they've already come out and said that star forward Phil Kessel and star defenseman Dion Phaneuf are not part of their long-term plans. Do you see either one of them getting moved before the deadline, or is this an off-season situation?
Oh boy, the fire sale is on, Casey. Big time. Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I think they're going to try and get Kessel and Phaneuf out before the deadline, which could be very easy to do because we're talking about 2 all-star players. But it also could be something in the offseason. You definitely will not see either of them on the team next year. Everybody is up for grabs in Toronto, except for David Clarkson, who is a no-trade clause, healthy scratch now watching from the press box.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, Kessel might be more of an option to trade for the deadline, but they might want to wait on Phaneuf. These guys are both very talented players, but I feel like both of them, are going to be gone soon. And I feel like Kessel could definitely go for a team right now that still has a shot at the playoffs, but needs that offensive boost, such as the Kings or Panthers. Or he could go to a top contender who could use an offensive boost, such as Nashville. So you never know. I feel like Kessel is a big option for a lot of different people right now. So I feel like he has a much better shot at getting shipped away at some point, as opposed to Phaneuf, who they might just wait until the offseason to get rid of.
It will certainly be tough to deal Dion Phaneuf either now or later, if only just because that contract extension that they handed to him last season was a behemoth. They're handing him close to $8 million over the next 8 years. It's absurd, the contract extension that he received, so it's going to make it very difficult for him to be moved. Phil Kessel, however, is worth the money that he's getting, if only just because he's a very good goal scorer. Rob, if Phil Kessel is going to be shipped, there's rumors that Florida may be in on the action. Do the Panthers have a realistic shot at Phil Kessel? And if not, where is he going?
Yes, Florida definitely has a realistic shot because they aren't a terrible team this year. They have a real good shot at the playoffs this year. I think if Florida really buttons down and gives them something, maybe like Thomas Fleischman or Sean Bergenheim, maybe, because you have to give equal value for Kessel. You might even have to deal both, just in case. But they definitely could. I mean, hey, I'd take him in New Jersey if we had equal value for him. Let's just trade Yager for him. I mean, it might work. Otherwise, though, I see Kessel just going anywhere in the East that's a playoff contender. So that leaves like Montreal, Tampa Bay, Detroit, if you wanted to stay in the division.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, as you said before, I would still think about the Panthers. They're a very good team, and Kessel could definitely go to him. Or even the Kings, who, as we've seen before, they've been struggling this year. But if they could get into the playoffs, they're known for their playoff runs. So I think Kessel will definitely be shipped to one of those 2 teams, if not a top contender like Nashville.
Absolutely. And Rob, you touched on Jaromir Jagr a little bit there. Jaromir Jagr has quickly become one of the most tradable assets that's out there on the market. He may be 43, but he's still got it, really, in the league. He's still putting up points. He's got 29 points this year. I mean, Jaromir Jagr is one of the most tradable commodities that are out there. It's said that he wanted to trade months ago from the New Jersey Devils, but owner and GM Lou Lamoriello and recent assistant coach, co-coach as part of that triad down there, Lou Lamoriello said that the team was still a contender, so they refused to trade him and they held on to him. So now they're in a point where it would probably be best to just ship him off for anything as opposed to trying to work a deal beforehand, giving some time. Do you see Jaromir Jagr getting traded at the deadline, Rob?
I do. I mean, he was quoted as saying, "I am not important to this team. Why should they keep me?" All you really have to do is read between the lines there, and that's basically requesting a trade without directly saying it. He said he will do whatever Lou Lamoriello wants to do. He is okay with anything at this point. He also did say if he is to get traded, it has to be an Eastern Conference team who's a contender. So that leaves like Montreal, Tampa Bay, Detroit, and maybe even the Islanders. I leave out the Rangers, Penguins, and all them because Lou Lamoriello has clearly stated he does not do business with the Rangers, the Flyers, and usually not the Penguins. He just does not do business with them, which probably also could kick out the Islanders.
Which really, that almost ruins a good chance for a huge storyline in the NHL. Can you imagine if Jaromir Jagr, after all these years, finally returns back to Pittsburgh, the place where he said he felt dying alive playing there, and spurned them after coming back from Russia for 3 years and signing signing with the Crosstown Flyers. Like, can you imagine? Is that a missed opportunity there for not dealing Yager to the Penguins?
Well, I mean, the Penguins are still a good team, so I mean, I feel like maybe he feels that way about playing with the Devils now. So maybe they'll want him. I mean, the question obviously is, does any team actually still want him because of his age and because his performance has gone down a little bit? But I mean, you can't fault him for that. I mean, it's possible that we could see him go in a team, but then the question becomes, where do you fit him in, and will he really make that big of an impact where teams will want to make that trade, or will he just stick around for the Devils until the offseason, and then maybe find another team for the next couple of years before he retires?
So, guys, with the trade rumors heating up, there's been a whole lot of demand, really, for top-tier centers around the league. We talk about, Phil Kessel being on the wing there, though, but there's also rumors of Ryan O'Reilly being dealt, Antoine Vermette from Arizona. Rob, if you had to pick one singular trade target who would be the biggest trade bait, who would you pick?
I have to stick with Phil Kessel on this one, Casey. I mean, he is a constant 30-goal scorer each season. Like, no matter what goes wrong with the team or whatever, he is one of the most consistent players in the NHL. He is just an all-star forward. Any team would be blessed to have him. Hint, hint to New Jersey. Please do something about this. Like, I'm serious. I would want him so bad, but I know that's unrealistic because we have basically nothing to offer them. But yeah, I see Phil Kessel being the biggest trade bait. And if I really had to see a team for him, I honestly see him going to like Detroit or maybe even Tampa Bay. Most likely Tampa Bay, actually.
Tampa Bay certainly does have a lot of young commodities in their system that they can trade away. They have a lot of valuable assets. Mac, if you had to pick one person to be dealt away, who is it?
I would definitely say Vermette, as you mentioned before. He's been a huge part of the Coyotes team so far this year, 35 points in 57 games. He's a solid in second-tier player. He's only 32 years old, so he's still got a lot of time in him. He could be a big boost to a top contender if they pick him up, and Arizona seems very willing to trade him as of now. So, he definitely could make a big impact for a top contender that really just needs that extra boost on their team.
Yeah, Arizona has been asking a lot for Vermette, though, so you wonder if a team like the Rangers, who has been rumored to be in on a middle six center, you wonder if maybe they'll overpay for a guy like Vermette. You'll see a team that's desperate enough to do that. We'll see where Vermette goes. Yeah. That wraps up our NHL segment. When we return, we'll be talking college basketball and the remainder of the Seton Hall season. On Monday, Seton Hall lost to Villanova with a score of 80-54. Considering they had handed Villanova their first loss back in January, what happened to them, and is their season over now?
I mean, Seton Hall has just been on as rough a path as you can get for a team that was so good in the beginning of the season. I mean, losing 8 of your last 10 games certainly does not help your playoff chances. They're currently 15-11. That does not look good to the NCAA at all. Plus, the locker room tension that's been going on does not help either. They somehow got to get back in early season form where they actually look like a legit contender. They just have to finish off the season strong against good teams like Georgetown and Providence, and then follow that up with a great turning run to even be considered. They need to win all of their games right now because they are not looking good to the NCAA at all, not even as a bubble team. They have to win all the rest of their regular season games. When, if not the entire tournament, they should at least get up to at least the finals of their division tournament, and then maybe they'll get a shot at the bubble team. But right now, Seton Hall is certainly struggling right now. It does not look good for them at all.
It's a frustrating month for them so far. They've already lost to DePaul, Marquette, Georgetown, and Providence before this loss. Not to mention the ugly incident towards the end of the game there where Sterling Gibbs throws a nasty elbow to Ryan Arcidiacono. I mean, that's a vicious hit. Rob, what went wrong? What is going on with Seton Hall right now?
Seton Hall really had an unrealistic start, if you think about it. No one expected them to be 12-3 after the first 15 games, but then something just completely went wrong, losing 8 of the last 10 for 15-11. I mean, granted, Villanova's number 6 in the nation, and they lose about as often as I score in floor hockey, which is almost never now. And, that's pretty much it. You knew Jay Wright was just not going to let them blow it at home or lose to the same team twice in a year. That just does not happen. Mm-hmm. But in general, I mean, and with Sterling Gibbs, that was disgusting. I am glad of what Seton Hall did. They stepped up and they suspended him for 2 games. They did the right thing there, and it's a good thing they did it before the NCAA stepped in and probably suspended him for like 5 games because that's just the way the NCAA is.
Now, Seton Hall's locker room really seems to be falling apart. Senior Brendan Mobley had come out and said that some of his teammates were more concerned with their own stats than they were with the team actually winning. I mean, they're really blowing a great chance to be one of the bubble teams at this point, and really, is 2 games enough for Sterling Gibbs? Granted, it's good that the university stepped up, but should he be done for the season, maybe?
I mean, I wouldn't say that the entire season was good. I think the suspension was fitting for what happened. The emotions sometimes they get the best of you, and it was certainly an uncalled for play. But afterwards, he did apologize to Twitter, and Archie Diacono did accept the apology. So at least, he stepped up and showed that he has some sort of forgiveness and maturity. And
He's being the bigger person.
Then Seton Hall said, okay, we understand that, but you still need to have some sort of suspension overall. So I feel like, for that. And I just feel like Seton Hall just needs to behave better as a team overall. Otherwise, they're just going to keep going down their losing path that they've been going through so far.
Yeah, it's good maturity from Archie Diacono to just write up and accept apology. I mean, does he really mean it? Who knows? But I think that he did the right thing being the bigger person. The suspension is fitting. As for Seton Hall's season, it's really dwindling down. That locker room tension is just bad. Brendan Mobley shouldn't have said that, but I mean, hey, no one said you're never allowed to speak the truth.
Absolutely. And with Seton Hall in this free fall right now, it opens the door for a team that was maybe one of the first four out. Now all of a sudden they're one of the bubble teams that has a realistic chance at getting it into the NCAA tournament, maybe making a run, because you never know during March Madness. So, Mac, if you had to pick one singular team to make a run as a bubble team, who would you pick?
All right, well, my bubble team is the Marist College Red Foxes. Okay, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, it's Syracuse Orange. Oh, wait.
Yeah, no.
Okay, actually, my dark horse is UCLA. They're one of the top rebounding teams in the nation right now. They've steadily improved as the season has gone on. They had some really bad losses early on, but they've beaten good teams like Utah. They're still playing Arizona soon. They're towards the top of the Pac-12, and so they can make a tournament run there as far as that. Finish off the season strong, as I said before, against an Arizona team. And they have good scorers like Powell and Alford to really help them out. And so for the rest of the season, if they can really start to show that they are really improving, they're 16-10 right now, but they can keep winning those Pac-12 games and really make a good tournament run. I feel like they could be the dark horse team that we're all looking for in the March tournament. They have tournament experience before, and I feel like the way that they're improving right now can continue on as they go into the tournament.
Robbie, your dark horse.
I have to go with a personal favorite of mine, the St. John's Red Storm, because honestly, they may currently hold the 10th seed, but that was before they lost by 22 points last night to Georgetown, 79-57 in Georgetown, but it's still embarrassing nonetheless. So obviously, when Joe Lunardi comes out with his next bracketology in like 3 days or whenever that may be, because he does it every 3 days, I think he might boot out St. John's for the fact, because no team that's 17-9 deserves to be a 10 seed in the tournament, or really in the tournament at the moment. But here's what I can tell you about St. John's. They were 11-1 to start the season. Granted, many of the games were easy, and their only loss was to Gonzaga, and that was only by 7 points. So, if they can play like the 11-1 team they will without a doubt make a tournament and maybe even get a Sweet 16 bid and make some serious damage.
They do seem to play up to their opponents, really. We saw how they played against Duke at Madison Square Garden, when Coach K earned his 1,000th win. People forget that St. John's was leading for the majority of that game, really. They went into the half leading, and until there was 8 minutes left in the game when Duke went on a crazy run, St. John's looked like they were in great control. They're a very athletic team, so maybe St. John's does have the makeup. I mean, you also have to maybe talk about the UMass Minutemen, who have been on a roll lately. They've won 7 in a row. They play VCU coming up, which is a ranked opponent. Maybe if they beat VCU, they have a very real chance of making it as an 11 seed, or maybe even, making a run, because you never know. But you have to wonder about all these bubble teams making a run. Eventually, someone's going to have to run into the Kentucky Wildcats. Can anyone beat the Kentucky Wildcats at this point after they killed Tennessee last night?
Honestly, and this is just out of any teams I've seen recently in any sort of year in college basketball, Kentucky has one of the better chances to stay undefeated for the rest of the season. They have top scorers, they have top rebounders, top assist guys. Calipari is coaching at the top of his level right now. And they really don't have any challenges in the SEC except for a home game against Arkansas and then a road game against a decent Georgia team. So for the rest of the season and the SEC tournament, I feel like they'll definitely stay undefeated. And then when it comes to the tournament, they have so many offensive and defensive weapons with guys like Cauley Stein and Booker and the Harrison twins. That's going to be tough for any team to really take them on because they've shown they can blow you out, but they can also come back against you when needed. And the only way I would say they lose is if they meet up a great team like Duke, who has guys like Okafor and Plumlee who can match up against guys like Towns and Cauley Stein, or a Gonzaga team that's just been hot as of late with their offense, which is always a tough team to beat. They'll be pushed to the limit. But Kentucky, they stay consistent. They do make rookie mistakes, but I mean they're filled with a ton of freshmen, and they step up the play in big games. And if they continue to do that through the tournament, I think they definitely have a shot of staying undefeated and really winning the NCAA tournament.
It's the best start in school history at 26-0. I mean, Robbie, it doesn't seem like this is a situation like Wichita State where, they're only undefeated because of their schedule. This is a legit powerhouse team right now, Kentucky, because they have one of the most loaded freshman classes in the country. Can they stay undefeated, Rob?
I think so, for the regular season at least, because they've got 5 games left. 3 of those teams are sub-500 teams. Their real challenge is going to be against Arkansas, who's number 18 currently. However, that one is at home for Kentucky. The big challenge will be Georgia on the road because Georgia's actually decent. But yeah, for the last 5 games, I think Kentucky will win, be 31-0, probably even win the SEC tournament. Maybe LSU, because of the way they played them, will have something to say about that in the finals. But I think Kentucky goes undefeated into the tournament. You can't really predict in the tournament because that is the most unpredictable tournament in sports of any sort of playoff, really. You never know what's going to happen. But definitely, if we're talking regular season and SEC tournament, Kentucky definitely stays undefeated.
That'll do it for our college basketball roundup. Now it's time to move into our Speak Up segment.
There were actually higher expectations set for the New Jersey Devils this season after offseason signings of Mike Camilleri, Martin Havla, and of course securing Corey Schneider's extension. Many fans and even a few analysts were expecting the Devils to finally return to the playoffs for the first time since their improbable run to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2012. However, the season has been very disappointing to the fans, and it looks like for the 3rd consecutive season, they will be missing the playoffs just by a little bit. The team always had trouble staying healthy this year. Ryan Clough and Bryce Salvador still are not healed and probably both finished for the season. While I am disappointed in this season so far, I'm hoping Lou Lamoriello will make a couple of moves at the deadline, which include Yager for getting hopefully some more draft picks and even maybe a player. Devils fans just look forward to next year because since the coaching change, they have played better, and that should be a good sign for next season. Just be patient, and the return to the playoffs will come.
A-Rod. Oy vey. The time has come for him to make his triumphant return to the Yankees. Yay. And already he has made so many attempts to reconcile himself to the Yankees faithful so that they will look past his HGH offenses. But don't think that a cursive-filled letter of regret and endless apologies will stop the Yankees fans' distaste for him. That's what really started since he joined the team. From his sissy slap of a Royals glove in Game 6 of the 2004 ALCS, his piss-poor playoff performance year after year, and his general a-holeness has certainly left a sour taste in the Yankees fans' mouths for many years, as evidenced by many of New York's top papers and Sport Network and that movie The Other Guys. Can A-Rod get on Yankees fans' good side now? Maybe. He just needs to, walk the walk, though I'd prefer a homer. If A-Rod can play like the great player he was while behaving respectfully and being a real team player, then Yankees fans can at least, for the moment, welcome him back. Just, not with open arms. Honestly, if A-Rod hadn't emphatically denied his involvement in the case or just not taken HGH again, then maybe he could have actually been well within the reach of that home run title he had so adamantly pursued. I guess stupid is as A-Rod does.
Tonight, Duke will be hosting the North Carolina Tar Heels in one of the greatest rivalries in college basketball. Legendary coaches, last-second shots, and the nation's top players are a mainstay. However, the game will be without one of its key components. Dick Vitale will not be broadcasting the game for the first time in roughly 30 years. Vitale's charisma and catchphrases have made him a legend. He is a known Duke supporter, but he was instead sent to the Tennessee-Kentucky game last night. Vitale has politely said that he goes where his bosses send him, but there is no doubt the battle for Tobacco Road will be lacking one of its most entertaining characters. That's all we have time for today. Tune in next week for another episode of This Week in Sports. That's Rob DeLuca, he's Matt McNamara, I'm Casey Bryant, and we're off.